Right, the military is too woke for Ron DeSantis. Too many trans people. I bet if this was 1960s, he would be saying there's too many black people in the military. Uh, the behaviors of right wingers is no different era to era. All they do is just target new people.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis tonight taking his culture wars, as they call it, to the military, laying out a plan to go after, in his words, the woke mind virus inside the armed forces. Listen.
What is a woke mind virus? Can we, like, has there been any, like, can you culture a woke mind virus in a petri dish and, like, study it? Or is this just, made up trigger words that right wingers love to use to trigger each other? Because that's what they love to do most of all.
Listen to how he's framing it over on CNN in just the last hour.
I think you've had a big problem with morale. You clearly have a problem with recruiting. And at this levels, everybody has acknowledged these recruiting levels are at a crisis. Why is that the case? I think it's because people see the military losing its way, not focusing on the mission and focusing on a lot of these other things.
A lot of these other things, like, no, people just don't want to join the military as much, which is why recruitment is low. And, people get tired of endless wars, which is why morale is low.
It's all coming as DeSantis becomes the first Republican candidate. You see him here registering for the South Carolina primary. This is him earlier today. One of the first primaries on the calendar, and a race that could boost or doom a campaign. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is traveling with the governor in Columbia, South Carolina. So let's talk about the woke mind virus, as DeSantis alleges. He has made this sort of anti-woke agenda a huge focus of his campaign, but it's a campaign that has had some stumbles, that is stagnating in the polls, for example. He's still putting his eggs in the anti-woke basket, clearly.
Yeah, clearly, Hallie. And look, that phrase, woke, he uses it to describe a lot of things, talking about education, now talking about the military. He rolled out his immigration policy a few weeks ago, mentioned it there. And also there's this back and forth over insurance in Florida. And the word woke keeps coming up over and over again. Now,
yeah, that's because right-wingers, especially the politicians, know that using the word woke will trigger anyone in their base, because it's become their new dog whistle trigger word. Oh, this person's woke. They're evil. They like trans people. This company's woke. Oh, they support LGBTQ people. This item is woke. Blah blah blah. It's just, dog whistle trigger words that Republican loves to use.
the governor today rolled out that military plan. It was, of course, overshadowed by much of the Trump news. But let's tick through that military plan, if we can throw up a full screen of what some of it is. It includes eliminating DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in the military, banning government buildings from flying any flag other than the U.S. U.S. flag or the U.S. military, revoking an order allowing transgender personnel to serve as their preferred sex, banning taxpayer funds for sex changes, hormones, or gender surgeries, banning drag shows on bases, and reinstating soldiers discharged for not getting vaccinated.
Right, because getting the COVID vaccine made you woke because you wanted to protect yourself against a actual real virus. I mean, imagine if our soldiers didn't get vaccinated for anything. The moment they go to a different nation, they're dying from some disease or infecting everybody else. And then how are you going to fight? This is stupid. Eliminate DI and critical race theory. Ron DeSantis would do away with a desegregated military if he had the choice. Same with all the other right wingers. If they could have a white military and a black military, they would, and the white military would be heavily funded.
Also ending climate change programs. So, Hallie, those are just some of the things that Governor DeSantis laid out today, and he spoke about it earlier at an event at a Veterans Hall. Take a listen.
Right now, the military is using your tax dollars to pay for hormones and sex change operations for people in the military. Look, not my cup of tea. I don't think any tax dollars should ever go to that.
Okay, I don't think my tax dollars should be going to rich politicians. Can we eliminate that? But, right-wingers wouldn't do anything like that because they love politicians getting free money.
And so, Hallie, this is all part of a strategy, too, where he's highlighting his military service. Of course, he served as a Navy JAG lawyer back in Iraq, and he's hoping.
Oh, a lawyer. Yeah, I bet you saw a lot of combat experience.
That may gain him some traction, as well as the so-called woke mind virus with GOP primary voters here in South Carolina, Hallie.
You talk about South Carolina. It's circled on my calendar. It is like marked on the G-Cal there because it comes after Iowa and New Hampshire and I think maybe Nevada this year ahead of Super Tuesday. What's so interesting about DeSantis going to South Carolina and kind of planting his flag there is not just the competition he faces in the state from people who know that state well. I'm thinking of Senator Tim Scott, for example, obviously Nikki Haley, but the way that it feels like perhaps him trying to take out an insurance policy in case his showing in Iowa and New Hampshire isn't as strong as he'd hoped.
Sure, it could be a key state, of course, and he is the first candidate to file in the South Carolina GOP primary, even ahead of Nikki Haley and Tim Scott. So clearly his campaign views it as a huge deal, especially because there will be more time in between those first primaries in South Carolina this time. So he expects to spend more time here. But Hallie, Iowa is still key for this campaign. His campaign sending a lot of resources to Iowa, and if he doesn't have a strong showing there, the question might be at that point, will he even get to South Carolina, especially since his campaign is burning through so much cash in these early few weeks, Hallie?
Gabe Gutierrez.